Okay, so this is the third episode of The Spider and the Fly. I am Tiffany.
And I'm Ben. All of our episodes are special. This is episode number 3.
Absolutely.
For those of you who have never heard us before, we are the true crime podcast where we drink, we smoke, and we talk about true crime. So, with that, let's go ahead and clear the air. Don't we usually clear the air first? Anything bad and evil and malicious and dark out there that is looking to pull us into its grip, we don't want any of that in our room. We don't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add to the sauce?
Just that we want clear articulation of our speech, and everything that we are speaking is fact to us, and no negativity while we're speaking it, because we're talking about negative shit. Mm-hmm. So we just want to keep it clear and light. Mm-hmm. That's it.
And with that, I'm going to start tonight's episode off with talking about the Nicholls family, the death of the Nicholls family. Basically, the story that I'm about to tell you, it involves arson, it involves murder, it involves drug addiction.
I feel like I know this story. I mean, I don't think I know it. I just think that I've heard of it.
It's a pretty high profile, case for sure.
Comes to
so. On the surface, Timothy and Deborah Nicholls appeared to be the embodiment of the American dream. They lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Colorado Springs, Colorado. The couple shared a home and together were raising their 3 children. Jay, who was Deborah's son. Timothy and Deborah Nicholls had Sophia and Sierra, who were both 5 and 3 respectively.
Okay.
So 3 kids that lived with them. Unbeknownst to family and friends, the Nicholls family were up to their eyeballs in debt. Despite struggling to maintain a home framing business, and a floundering karaoke business on the side, the couple was also succumbing to the entrapments of the nightlife.
Okay.
Deborah Nicholls pretty much ran her karaoke business and everything, so she was out most of the time. She'd go and leave to the bar. She was going to work, but she was, doing the whole nightlife thing as she was going out and trying to bring money in for the family. So the couple maintained the appearance of a healthy family. The dark truth was that Timothy and his wife Deborah were both deep in the throes of drug addiction. Not everybody knew that they were doing it. They thought of their suburban life as a hindrance to their partying lifestyle. The whole, white picket fence thing wasn't working out for them anymore, and they decided that they wanted out.
Wait, so a hindrance to...
the type of lifestyle that they wanted to live.
So the people who are in the neighborhood... basically, like their neighbors.
To me, it seemed more like the path that they were following, and that they found themselves on with like 3 kids and a house and running these failing businesses and the debt and everything else. But their drug of choice is methamphetamine, a habit that would cost the couple over $500 per week at least.
That's a...
Yeah, and with 3 kids in the house, it was a real... toxic environment for everyone, I imagine.
I imagine that. I mean, $500 a week?
Mm-hmm. That was on top of the $12,000 that they already owed the IRS.
Okay.
The couple was also over, get this, $200,000 deep with the local chapter of the motorcycle club caused by their methamphetamine addiction.
Oh, that's not good.
And that was who served as the supplier.
So it's all around not good. You said $12,000?
$200,000 at least estimated.
$200,000?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Okay.
That may not have been like what they owed in drugs, but like that was part of what they owed for sure. I wasn't able to find any info on the biker gang. The article that I did find on Google was no longer up. So I had to read a cached version of that website. Mm-hmm. But there were only a handful of biker gangs that were active in the Colorado Springs area in the mid-2000s. And this was actually following a massive crackdown initiative on biker meth distribution in Colorado Springs. And I found that out through a rabbit hole while I was doing research. But this was a juggling act maintained by Timothy and Deborah Nicholls and would eventually come to a head. Deborah Nicholls, who insisted that... Timothy, her husband, took a life insurance policy out for himself, assuming that it would cover the 3 children as well, as like a family plan sort of thing, in case something happened in an accident. Mm-hmm. On March 7th, 2003, the family's life would change forever as the family home would burn down with the 3 small children inside. Deborah had left the house that evening to host karaoke at a local bar, which I believe is called the Tailgater, or the Tailgate. Timothy Nicholls would then begin to set into motion a plan devised by Deborah to burn the children alive inside their home. It was later stated that Timothy Nicholls, high on meth, had doused the family couch with flammable accelerant, then led the children onto the couch with snacks before sending them to bed. So he had them come onto the couch and kind of roll around in the flammable liquid.
Oh my God. Devastating.
The accelerant was a product called Goof Off. Are you familiar? It's kind of like
The slime?
It's not really a slime. It's kind of like an oily, like thick liquid you use to get stickers off of.
Okay.
Like, it takes the stickiness from stickers off, and it takes away like grease marker. I use it quite a bit with retro video game collecting because you get some stuff secondhand, and it's the only thing that cleans these plastic cartridges up.
Okay.
But it's this product called Goof Off, but apparently it's extremely flammable, and that was.
Are you telling me that's what he had them roll around in?
Yes, and he kind of like peppered it throughout the house.
To ensure this house will burn down?
Yes.
And I'm sorry, what are the age ranges of these kids?
11, Jay, Sophia 5, and Sierra's 3.
Oh my God.
So 2 little girls and a little boy. Timothy Nicholls' testimony would state that he accidentally knocked over a candle, which resulted in the house fire, although he also told conflicting stories to other people that it was an electric short that started the fire. There wasn't a whole lot of light shown on the details of how the fire got started.
Okay.
In the staged arson, Timothy Nicholls is stated to have fallen out the window trying to save the children, claiming to have broken his collarbone. He was also examined to have minor burns on his body, but the doctors that looked at him concluded that these were superficial injuries. He was covering for the fact that he didn't try to save these children, or at the very least allowed them to burn alive while they slept. But he survived.
Of course he did.
Timothy Nicholls, who was stated to fall out the window, he survived superficial injuries. In the violent blaze, 11-year-old Jay, 3-year-old Sierra, they died from smoke inhalation. So they were in the house breathing in the smoke as the house burned down around them. 5-year-old Sophia survived the fire, but was left heavily brain damaged, and the doctors fought desperately and did everything they could in their power to try to save her. But she died shortly after in the hospital. Due to the severity of the fire and the fact that there were casualties, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation called in accelerant-sniffing dogs to the scene. The arson investigation team was shocked to find what they found on the pajamas of the children. They tested positive for accelerants, the same kind that was found on the couch. A chemical called xylene, which was found in this Goof Off. So they detected that on the clothing, or should I say the remains of the children.
It's heavy.
It's a very heavy story. In fact, I'm going to take a break here to do my shot.
Yeah.
So,
it's heavy, and we're not even halfway through. I just want to cry. Like, anything involving kids, like, fuck, it's heavy.
It breaks your heart. And I don't really want to have a whole lot of darker stuff towards kids on this show.
Right.
But it happens.
It happens.
And these are the stories that we're reporting on. And we support the victims. If anything, this is...
In every case.
In support, yes.
In every story that we do, we support the victims. Always.
All right. Cheers to the victims.
Cheers to the victims. And hopefully every fucker who caused them to be victims are put in prison.
Hear, hear.
Hear, hear. It's warm going down.
Well, it's getting cold out, You gotta layer up. Daughter died in the hospital. They found the accelerant on the clothing.
I'm sorry, which one, what daughter is that?
The 5-year-old, middle child, was the one that survived the fire but died in the hospital.
Okay.
The details started to kind of come together. It started to become very clear that this wasn't an accident, but an arson. Mm-hmm. And it didn't add up for Timothy and Deborah to be behind the deaths of the family initially, because who in their right mind would start a fire endangering their 3 children?
Kids.
Their whole family. They're everything.
And putting the accelerant on them to ensure the job. That is the most horrible way to die, by fire. And it's like cowardly in the case of you causing somebody's death. In the case of you murdering somebody, it's cowardly. As parents of these children, In any case, it's not right. But why wouldn't you cause something that's like gonna make them go to sleep and never wake up, or something like that? Like, to already want to kill them is terrible, but to kill them that way is even more fucking terrible.
Yeah, it's a product of their drug addiction. Yes,
they're fucking on meth.
It started to become very clear that this wasn't arson. Evidence would quickly start stacking up on the couple as their meth-riddled scheme would come to a screaming stop. Right after the night of the fire, I would say within 24 hours of the children dying, the couple would begin cashing in on the number of insurance policies on the house, including the children, obviously was the first thing that went through their heads, but also, and this is weird, Deborah tried to get insurance money on the vehicle that wasn't even present on the fire. It was the one that she was in when she wasn't there, so that upsets me because...
It upsets me.
You know.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
They're idiots. They're idiots on top of being monsters.
Of course, they hit a hiccup, as they always do, when the insurance companies weren't fooled. Deborah tried to claim the vehicle. That didn't happen. I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but there were no active life insurance runners on the children. It was literally a pipe dream. It was something that they thought was in place, but it never existed.
How do you think it's in place? You're their parents.
The drugs. The drugs and just the stress of all the money that they owed, trying to make these failing businesses work and trying to keep their family afloat.
I mean, you're their parents, though. Like, you should know, if nobody else in the world knows, if these kids have a life insurance policy on their life.
It was a literal pipe dream.
I can't believe it.
Essentially, they died for nothing.
They died for nothing. And you're their parents. It's not like you was killing somebody else's kids and you assumed that there was a life insurance policy that you would get some kind of way. They're your kids. Like, how don't you know? Poor kids.
They did get the money for the house being insured.
Okay, we said that was their angle? That the house was going to go down?
They knew that they were going to get
some money for the house.
They knew they were going to get the house.
You couldn't be dumb enough to kill your fucking kids and you didn't insure them. Poor kids. I don't mean to laugh, but I can't believe how dumb.
Despite the insurance money alone, the Colorado Springs community banded together to provide the couple with over $38,000 in donation. That went to the burial fees and such to, obviously send Sophia to the hospital and bury all three of them when they did eventually all die as a result of this fire. From smoke inhalation, which is what we're doing on this podcast right now.
But willingly. We're full adults and we don't have a accelerant on our clothing.
That's true.
What the fuck? What the fuck?
After they buried the children, the community didn't know that when they provided them with the donations, they didn't know that they were behind the murder. But I was thinking about it, and it probably doesn't change anything because it allowed. It doesn't change a thing. You can't discount other people's kindness.
But, right. You can't discount that, and at least these people are coming together to bury these kids.
Yeah. I mean, it was just something bad that happened.
Right.
And
that shows a good faith and goodwill of the community that they were in.
I agree. But it's not like it's not like they knew that they were getting duped.
Right.
Because nobody knew. Well, right. Obviously investigators knew.
Yeah.
That
shit wasn't right.
That shit wasn't right.
Yeah.
Deborah refused to see her daughter in the hospital, who doctors essentially had on life support, but she was reported brain dead, and she claimed that it was too much for a mother to handle, which I imagine is fair. You know what I mean? In good faith. Before they knew that she was behind everything. Mm-hmm. But she would continue to distance herself from her children by not attending the funerals of the children that the community put together for everybody. She denied herself the closure of her children being buried. She has since been to the gravesites of her deceased children, but
she didn't go to the funeral?
She didn't go to the funeral. She didn't visit the daughter in the hospital. Very traumatic event. Even if she planned it,
Oh my gosh. It just keeps getting worse and worse. She didn't go to the funeral. You're the mother. You carried these kids. You birthed them.
The following 2 days, she would be out drinking and even singing karaoke on one occasion.
Oh my gosh.
But you know, I'm not the one to judge how somebody mourns.
Yeah.
We all mourn
right.
differently. We all
Right.
mourn differently. You
Right.
know what I mean? So
We all experience grief differently.
And this is coming from somebody that uses karaoke as a way to kind of deal with some very complicated feelings.
You're right.
You know what I mean? So that's still giving her the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Looking at this from the outside.
That's not knowing what we know.
That's not knowing like what anybody knew at this point.
But knowing what we know, I guess that shows like the emotion that she was going through. You not going to this hospital to visit your daughter, you not going to their funeral shows your guilt. There's no way that a mother who just went to host karaoke one night and her kids burned in the fire would not be rushing to the hospital to be with her daughter. That full on shows your guilt.
So, all the lab work comes back. It's an apparent arson. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows that this is an arson at this point. And the investigators, they didn't want to believe it. They didn't want to believe that it was the family themselves, Timothy and Deborah Nicholls, that caused this thing to come together the way it has.
Right.
Because obviously that's what all the evidence pointed towards. They're shocked. They're shocked to find out that was the case, and that's when they started looking into it, I guess. But like they're still kind of giving them the benefit of the doubt, because it doesn't really make sense why somebody would logically do something like this. It was a combination of Timothy Nicholls' sloppy storytelling and the ultimate suspicion of being the only adult there when everything went down, and essentially being, you're the only accountable person there. He eventually became the prime suspect for the premeditated murder of his children, but only with very circumstantial evidence. They didn't have anything tangible to tie that to be his motive. Aside from the insurance money, which is the house, and the supposed insurance that was going to be on the children themselves. Still, what a horrible thing to do.
Still.
It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
It was actually
burn the house down. Why do you have to kill the kids?
The kids were caught in the fire. Maybe he intended to. Well, see, that's the thing. It's like if he intended to save them, he wouldn't be having them roll around in lighter fluid or goof off.
He wouldn't. He would ensure that they, just like she wasn't there, he would ensure that the kids wasn't there too.
Mm-hmm. It was actually Sandra Wilson, Deborah's mother, who insisted and pestered the 4th Judicial District Attorney by the name of John Newsom as soon as he took office, begging him to do something about the deaths of her grandchildren. Mm-hmm. So she pretty much went to the court saying somebody needs to do something about investigating what actually happened there, because
something happened.
Things aren't adding up the way that they say that they are. And she just wants justice for the kids.
Right.
Investigators were given clearance to tap the Nicholls phones and came away with the circumstantial evidence that I mentioned earlier. And it all painted Timothy in a bad light. Like I said, circumstantial evidence, it was something for them to move forward for. And they wanted to make sure that they had all their ducks in a row. If they were behind it, then they would get them for murder and a number of other felonies. But the grand jury came back with murder indictments for Timothy Nicholls. The case broke wide open. The case goes to court, and Timothy is convicted with a big steaming pile of evidence that he has been charged with 19 counts, including first-degree murder, arson, drug possession, child abuse, animal abuse, which means that either they had a pet in the house or somebody's pet was hurt in the fire. Conspiracy, theft, of course the big one, insurance fraud. Yeah, a man who was part of the story was a defense attorney by the name of Dennis Hartley, who was this hotshot defense lawyer when it came to some of the most despicable criminals, including Timothy McVeigh, the Oklahoma City bomber. But he suggested that the couple remain married for 2 reasons. One, it would make them look better in front of a jury. The second reason would come to be in 2008. The other shoe would drop and the evidence would show that Deborah is just as guilty as her husband.
Well, how does them staying married make either of them look better?
As a defense attorney, he probably didn't want to have to deal with a divorce on top of being their defense attorney.
As a defense attorney, I think that I would choose one or the other to defend.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I don't care if y'all get a divorce or whatever. Like, I'm not handling that, but I'm only going to defend the less guilty. But the wife appears to be.
Yes, I think that's the thing. Like, at that point, he was just Timothy Nicholls, defense lawyer. And then... But that guy, keep a note on him, the defense lawyer, Dennis Hartley, because the ending of the story, or at least the twist in his story, kind of bears out, I would say, fittingly.
Okay.
So just listen for that.
All right.
So Timothy Nicholls was convicted in May of 2007 on 3 counts of felony murder to serve 3 life sentences. This is where a character named Hiram Church slides into the scene. Hiram is Timothy Nicholls' cellmate in jail. It was from him that the court learned that goof off was used as the accelerant, not to mention that cans of the product were found all around the house, outside the shrubbery, like in the bushes and stuff like that. Hiram Church also claimed that Timothy Nicholls had told him that the two had been planning the murder of their children well in advance. Deborah Nicholls denied all of these claims made by her husband's cellmate, but by him coming forward and doing this kind of allowed them to dig up dirt on Deborah Nicholls and bring her in for her own trial. The evidence would eventually catch up with her. Attorneys were initially frustrated when Timothy Nicholls was convicted and sentenced because the evidence shows that she was equally responsible. That would soon change. With the amount of evidence surrounding Deborah, her fate would not fare better than her husband's. Though her trial was dragged out to last 6 weeks, during her trial she continued to deny the claim that she was responsible for the children's death. The mother, Sandra Wilson, testified for her daughter, claiming that her daughter had loved her kids. She even mentioned that she made several attempts to sway Deborah from her addiction to meth. Here's a quote. "First, I want everyone to know I love my daughter," Wilson said. "I'm devastated losing her and what she's done to my grandchildren." Deborah was eventually sentenced to serve. Assistant District Attorney Amy Mullaney, she said this in her closing statements. "People who commit a cold-blooded act feel nothing for those they've made suffer. And these children did suffer. What she did was a horrible, monstrous act. She's earned every day of this sentence." Deborah Nicholls was found guilty in 2008 on 3 counts of first-degree murder and other crimes. Well, of course, the other crimes, and sentenced to life without prison without the possibility of parole. She currently resides at the Denver Women's Correctional Facility, where she will likely wither into an old woman and die serving her sentence. I was unable to find anywhere Timothy Nicholls was serving his sentence after he was held at El Paso County Jail, was where he met Hiram Church.
Okay.
The most recent contact with the public Deborah Nicholls has made was with an investigator. Her name is Lori Martin of KKTV 11 in Colorado Springs. She interviewed her briefly about the circumstances of her sentence. Deborah still maintains that she was not responsible for the death of her children. At the very least, she did not kill them. She has made efforts calling into question the record of the fire investigator, which was initially called to the scene. She even went as far as to hire a second fire investigator to get a second opinion. I think she's just in denial. She doesn't want to admit that she got caught and she slipped up. And
clearly. And you like I said, like you not going to the hospital to, as soon as you heard about it, like, I don't care what parent you are, like, even if you're not a parent, even if you were, like, just a distant relative, you know, you hear that these other 2 children unfortunately perished in this fire and there's one who survived, aren't you automatically rushing to the hospital? Right. You know, like, in any case, in any family member instance, you're doing that. So it's just like, how dare you? You're going to hire another fire investigator when all signs point to you?
Yeah, so Deborah Nicholls, as recent as 2017, has been trying to get a new trial, withholding her stance that she was not guilty.
You are guilty.
You're
guilty.
In 2017, that same year that she tried to get a new trial, the Colorado Supreme Court denied her of her appeal.
Okay.
So nobody's buying her line of bullshit.
Yes. Bullshit.
Jay, who died when he was 11, Sophia, who died when she was 5, and Sierra, who died when she was 3, were all buried next to each other in the Woodland Park Cemetery in Teller County, Colorado. Do you have any questions or final thoughts? Because that's pretty much the end of it. It's kind of a sad one. It's a really sad one.
Only like how terrible for the kids. Like they're literally innocent victims in it all, and they have 2 idiot parents, and it's just unfortunate. Like they didn't ask to be here. You know, like anything involving kids is terrible, and so I just feel like that's just like that's heavy.
It's heavy.
The way that they died and the way that they chose to do that is terrible. And I agree with the judge. You deserve every bit of this sentence. You deserve every bit of it because it's just terrible. That's so terrible. What poor children.
Yeah, so I do have some notes to wrap up towards the end of the story. And if you have any questions, just let me know.
No.
Dennis Hartley, the attorney, the defense attorney of Timothy Nicholls. So he eventually resigned from being an attorney in disgrace because it was found that he mishandled a lot of cases and like took money in very underhanded ways. So he was a crooked attorney this whole time.
Okay.
That may or may not be irrelevant to the case, but it doesn't help the credibility of the defense attorney that defended.
I mean, I don't think it has anything to do with this case in particular. Like, the way he handled it, of course, is weird and wrong. But that doesn't change the fact of what they did before he was their defense attorney, so...
Doesn't really... So you don't really think it's much of a stain on his illustrious career?
I mean, no. It was just, like, something else that he would handle terribly in that case. You know, I don't think, like, it really applies to the case itself.
All right, I have one more thing that kind of just disturbed me. The name of the street that their house was built on, it was called Undimmed Circle.
That's weird.
It's creepy, isn't it? I found that to be a very eerie artifact. of the story.
Yeah, just wanted something to make you go,
Yeah, Very interesting. Very interesting. And I did have a question for you now. Doesn't it make you kind of wonder what her favorite karaoke song was, or like the song that she would always sing? Because you've seen me do karaoke a number of times now. Probably seen me sing this one song by the Arctic Monkeys that I pull out every now and again because it's like the one song that I know. I feel like everyone does karaoke's got like one song that they know that they keep in their back pocket.
That's the point.
And I wonder what Deborah Nicholls' song was.
Yeah, and I wonder what that song was that she was singing
the song
instead of going to the funeral and all that other shit.
Yeah, what was it? What were the karaoke songs that she was singing after her children died?
Yeah, how deep was that guilt? And what song showed that guilt?
I agree. It'd be interesting to know these things.
It would be.
Oh, yeah. Sources. So I wanted to cover sources with you real quick. So the biggest source that I had in this story was from the Gazette by a journalist named Dennis Huspini.
Colorado Springs.
No. This is the Gazette is syndicated story. This journalist was following the story and put together a very good idea of like a timeline. It wasn't the only timeline that I referred to, but it was a very interesting one. Right. That I thought was like, okay, you can kind of see for yourself what happened when it happened. And then there's other details peppered in there that I just simply didn't have time to research, so I'm not going to talk on. If you're interested in the story, do your own research. It's out there. It's very interesting stuff if you like digging in the dirt and getting into the bones of the story. Another one was the interview, which you can watch right now on Colorado Springs 11 KKTV, the interview that she did in 2017, where they straight up ask Deborah Nicholls, did you murder your children? Did you do this? No, I would never do such a thing. You can watch that interview for yourself.
Okay.
That was another interesting source that I watched multiple times when researching this. The Rapid City Journal. Oh, and a court document that I found was very handy called Nicholls versus Colorado, and that's the official court document, which goes into how Timothy Nicholls had his cellmate kind of bring her into justice.
Okay. Which, might I add to that, is kind of weird. You had the cellmate do it?
Well, I think he had details to the story that wasn't public knowledge at that time.
Yeah.
So he was the one that came out and said and brought a lot of these things to light as to that she was guilty as well.
So the cellmate is doing it so that he can just get a little break on his own, probably.
I mean, he
just a jailhouse snitch.
I mean, he might be a jailhouse snitch. He might know that this guy killed his daughter and his 3 kids.
And this bitch also was in on killing the kids.
Yeah, I mean, like he's already going to be serving his time, but right. It was the right choice to make for this guy. Obviously,
it was.
It obviously was.
I bet you he got a little time off.
That's what I guess too, but who knows? Who knows? But yeah, that's the story of the Nicholls family, Timothy and Deborah Nicholls, whose children died in a fire.
Devastating, but good. I feel so terrible for the children involved because they're innocent in the whole thing. And then you have 2 idiot parents who ultimately kill you for no reason because they didn't purchase life insurance. Who else would have purchased this life insurance if you didn't? It's terrible.
Yeah, the motives behind it, just the drug addiction, just the whole distorted reality. The fact,
kids.
Yeah, the fact that. Yeah.
I'm sorry that there wasn't anybody there to prevent this, to stop them from executing this plan.
You say that, but throughout the story, the mother of Deborah, Sandra Wilson, she was kind of a voice for these deceased children. She put a lot of effort into making it, the whole story behind why they had to die.
Well, at least she's bringing a conclusion to it, making sure that justice is sought in it. If nobody else thought it weird, she did, so that's good. But it's just so terrible. It's so terrible. Oh,
there's one other note that I just, for whatever reason, I didn't mention before. She had another child after she had her son, which apparently died of sudden infant death syndrome. They tried to say that she was responsible for that as well. So that may or may not paint a better picture for you.
That makes the whole shit different, because then I think you have some Munchausen, by proxy type shit.
Well, that information didn't come out until after the fact. Now we can look at it and dissect it, but they were being very deceptive in what they were showing people.
Well, and only in that case, I guess. Because if you're not around, if she wasn't around for the other kids, and then you're didn't go to their funeral or anything, that's kind of the opposite if she had Munchausen. Now that I say that, because that's opposite. Because they seek attention. They want people to sympathize for them and, treat them, baby them because this tragic thing happened. So she avoided all that. So I guess that's totally different.
Yeah. Yep. So
it's even more terrible.
It just breaks your heart.
Yeah. Some people shouldn't be allowed to have kids. So mine is on something that didn't happen too long ago, a couple years ago. Kind of high profile. Is on the murder of Shannan, Bella, and Celeste Watts.
Okay.
Are you familiar?
No, I'm not.
I think as I go on, you might be. Because When we was working together, I brought this shit up.
Okay.
I want to start by giving my sources. Most of my sources come from the documentary series that came on Netflix. It's called American Murder. It's called The Family Next Door. I also got some other things off of Google, specifically from Film Daily, Honestly Yours, which that article I will talk about a lot. On the side, after I give the whole actual story out, that's my side piece from
Gotcha.
Honestly Yours. And Crime Talk is off of YouTube. So I'm going to start off, and I'm going to give some background as I'm going through the story. We start off on August 13th, 2018. So a friend of Shannan Watts, her name is Nicole Atkinson. She dropped Shannan off at home at around 2 a.m. in the morning. They're just coming back from a business trip from Arizona. As I went into it, it was more like a retreat type of thing.
Yeah.
That they went to. And so they had just came back around 2 a.m. She drops her off. The next day, Nicole starts calling and texting Shannan early in the morning because while they were on this business trip, she was sick. I'll just say right now, she was pregnant, so she was sick, so they was concerned about her because she wasn't eating or drinking like she normally would be. Mm-hmm. And she seemed to be in distress while on this trip as well. And I'll get into that more as well. She's checking into her. This is like her best friend and her coworker. They know each other for like 3 or 4 years. They have kids the same age. Their kids play together. They work together. And, besides working, they're friends. So she has a lot of insight into what's going on in her life. So she's like calling her and texting her, and Shannan is not responding to any of these calls or text messages. And they're like repeatedly, she started, I want to say probably about 7 o'clock in the morning. And by 11, she's like, I'm really worried. You haven't responded to me. What's going on? Mm-hmm. So because she's not responding, Shannan's not responding, Nicole goes over to her house. Now, Shannan is a mother of a 3 and 4 year old babies. They're little girls. She goes over to the house, and the house is quiet. Like, nothing is going on in this house. Neither one of us have children, but obviously, if you have children who are 3 and 4, you can hear something going on at 11 o'clock in the morning. Like, something's going on in this house. And so she goes over there, and the house is quiet. Because the house is quiet, and she hasn't heard from Shannan, she calls the police. In this moment in time, anyway, Chris Watts, who is Shannan's husband, is, like I said, in this moment in time, he's also missing. Nicole calls the police. The police show up. They're talking to Nicole, and she's like, basically telling them why she's worried, why she's concerned, laying down the whole line. She has these babies. The house is quiet. We had a business trip yesterday. She was sick. She's not responding to me. This is unlike her. Just basically going down a list of why she's worried. When the police arrive, they need permission to enter into the premises. So Nicole calls Shannan's mother. Her name is Sandy or Sandra. I think I'm saying it right, but I think it's Ruzik. So they call her because the house that they live in is owned by Shannan's parents. So they call her to get entry into get the key code to the garage to open up the door. And her mom is frantic, like, what the fuck is going on?
Right.
I talked to Chris, and he's telling me that Shannan is out with another one of her friends. And her friend Nicole was like, well, who was that?
Right.
He's like, well, I don't know who that is, but she said she took her and the kids went to go be with these other friends. Now this is like, she drops this woman off. Nicole drops Shannan off at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's 7 o'clock when she starts texting her and calling her and everything, and she's not responding to anything. Between 7 and 11 o'clock, what friend did she go hang out with? Right? And I think it speaks a lot that the mother is like, well, he told me she's with these friends. Like, she obviously keeps in close contact with her parents and her friends. Mm-hmm. From everything I've seen, she's always with these kids, and there's like a little bit of background information on that is that she never thought that she was told she couldn't have kids because she had lupus.
Okay.
And so she gets blessed with these 2 babies, and then she's pregnant with a 3rd. So I don't see her not being around these kids. You know what I'm saying? I don't see her not keeping in communication with everybody that she's close to and telling who she's going with these kids. Like, it just doesn't fit as a mother. So that's what the mother, Sandra is saying, you know, he's telling me that she's went with one of her friends, but he didn't know who, and he didn't tell me who. While all this is going on, he comes back. I didn't really get it clear if somebody called him and was like, hey, the police is here, or if, like, Nicole got in touch with him, like, but he comes while the police are there. So, like, the beginning of this documentary is showing a police cam. So this is, like, everything that happened at the time. So he comes up and he's frantic, but I haven't noted here, like, his appearance is forced. Like, him being upset about his wife and 2 kids being missing is, like, forced. It's like, I have to be frantic. You know what I'm saying? And that's, like, something else that comes up a little bit later on. Not too much later, but a little bit. So they enter the house. He finally gets there. The mother is still on the phone with Nicole saying, enter the fucking house. I'm giving you permission. Like, what's going on? Stay on the phone with me. They enter the house. Shanan and the 2 girls are not there. Bella and Celeste, they're not there. Everybody is walking through this whole house. Even him. You know, like he hasn't been there or whatever. You know, he's too searching the house. So they come across her purse, which has her medication in it that she has to take every day. Well, first, they notice her phone is still there. And there's, like, these text messages from him, like, baby, where are you? And, you know, like, laying on thick, you know? And sure. It's like, in light of what we know, this is some bullshit. So, anyway, there's text messages from him, and he's like, I haven't heard from her either. Like, she told me she was going with this friend, and so they find her phone, and then they find her purse, and has medication in there. And in both instances, when they find this, her friend is like, you can see the worry on her face. You know, like she's talking to her mom, and she's like, her phone is still here. And then he picks it up like, she works from this phone. This is her lifeline. And the friend is like, telling her mom, her phone is still here. Then they find her purse. Oh my God, her purse is here with her medication in it. Like, she wouldn't ever be apart from her purse, her phone, her medication. In the moment of all this, like I said, the friend is frantic and she's worried as fuck, and she should be, because this is one of your best friends. You know that she was sick yesterday, and it'll come out later, but she also knows the state of their relationship. So right. She's worried, which she should be, because this is your best friend. While the cops are, like, questioning Chris and Nicole, and, you know, because she called the cops anyway. Mm-hmm. While they're questioning her, Chris and Shanann's neighbors, his name is Nate Trinistich, I believe is how you pronounce it. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. He comes forward and says that he has, like, video of the neighborhood. Like, it's his own personal home surveillance. It shows a whole street of people who, like, up and down the street and, like, behind him and everything. Like, it's his own personal surveillance. So he comes forward and says he has that shit. The cops and Chris go over to this man's house and view his surveillance. Now, while they're over there, Chris is, like, fidgety. He never once really looks at the video. Now, this is my wife and my children who are missing. You say you got surveillance. There's no way that I'm not looking at that shit like, well, what do you got on here? Who showed up at my house? All we see on this surveillance is him backing up into their driveway. It's 5:17 in the morning. Now, keep in mind, she just got home at 2. And you can see him loading and unloading shit. The cop and the neighbor are both, like, looking at the TV. And his back is, like, he's, like, right in front of the TV with his back to the TV. So then he'll turn and he'll look at it. And then he'll look back again, look at his phone. And he has a whole explanation about why he was backing up at 5:17 in the morning. So he says that it was easier for him to do that, to load and unload tools that he had to do for his job.
Okay.
And then he goes into some weird fucking shit about the neighbors, all of them, like the community having problems with people breaking into people's garages in their cars. The neighbor doesn't say anything about that. He's like, he doesn't acknowledge him. He doesn't say like, yes, yeah, that happens, like, yeah. He doesn't say any of that. He's just looking at him like, what the fuck? Mm-hmm. So Chris is like giving this explanation about why he's loading and unloading shit. He also gives that weird story about people breaking into garages. And then he also offers that she's pregnant. And so that's like at the beginning of the documentary, that's when it comes out, that she's pregnant. And then they go into, like, they show how she tells him she is. And, he's extra happy about it. And it turns out it's a little boy. And he's super happy because they got 2 girls. And, the whole works. They go into that. And then it cuts back to Chris leaving the neighbor's house. And the cop is like, I'm going to get his information. I'll be back over there to talk to you. Soon as he walks out the door, the neighbor is like, he's acting fucking weird. And he's like, he's never this frigidy. And he doesn't talk this fucking much. Like, he's fucking weird. And he goes back to the video and he, like, shows him. He's like, if you look and see this, like, he never loads and unloads shit. He's like, I've never seen him do any of that. He's quiet. Nobody ever talks to him, like, the way he's over here talking so much and giving explanations about why he's doing that. And he is also offering some other story about people breaking into the garage that has nothing to do with nothing. So the neighbor's like, he's acting fucking weird. He notes that, The cop is like, well, you gotta put yourself in his position. His wife is missing, his kids are missing, and, you never know somebody's reaction. The neighbor's like, yeah, I can get it. But fuck that, like, this motherfucker's acting weird.
Yeah, but fuck that.
That was, like, his face of expression, and I felt that, like, yeah, I can put myself in his position, and yeah, it's fucked up what's happening right now. His wife is missing, and so is his kids. But he's acting fucking weird. And the only thing I get is on this, at 5:17 in the morning, on my surveillance, is him pulling up into the shit. Nobody else, right? Okay, so the next day, we'll move on to the next day. They basically leave the house after that without any explanation or anything. They just like, we'll hit you up tomorrow. Basically is what it felt like. Right. We don't know where she's at. She's not here, but this is the initial thing, and she could just have went on a small trip and took these kids is basically what I felt. But the very next day, they contact Chris to get information about the kids, and they're like, we're going to send out some alerts, and, we need to get all the information that we need to get from you. So, before I finish on what happened the next day, I'm going to get into them a little bit. Shannan and Chris met on Facebook. From what they show her, she seems to be, like, very ambitious and, like, about herself. Kind of controlling, but in a way that she wants everybody around her to be successful, and she also wants to be successful herself. They talk about her being like 25. It's her own personal words or whatever. She was given like a video she had. And when she was growing up, her parents worked hard for everything they had. They wasn't like rich, and nothing was handed to her. And she worked hard and built her own house when she was 25. That is a huge fucking accomplishment, I will fucking give her that. And then, like, her health started declining. She found out she had lupus, and it was just like a dark loop for her. And then she meets Chris. He's kind of like her knight in shining armor, Prince, knight in shining, you know what I'm trying to say. Because he shows up in the time of her in a bad place. Uh-huh. And he's, like, pursuing her, but she wasn't looking for a relationship, but he pursued her. And what I want to highlight about that really quickly is, like, when he's pursuing her, he's kind of a chunky dude. Right? And she's like, I don't want anything to really do with you. But they end up getting married. Like, he pursues her and he wins her over and they start dating or whatever. Eventually they get married 2012. Now, a side note on that is his family does not like her. And they do go into it. They didn't show up to their wedding. So he went on and married her and nobody from his family was present. So that's kind of a huge red flag into the relationship. Like, it kind of speaks volumes. Now, you don't marry a person for their family, but you do marry the family. Sure. And you want to be in good with your in-laws. So, I couldn't imagine being a woman, and I'm not, like, judging her. I don't know her situation. I don't know what was happening. But I wouldn't want to marry someone, and his parents didn't show up to our wedding. You know, like, besides anybody else, I don't give a fuck about anybody else, but your parents didn't show up. Like, I feel like there's some shit you have to work on. And he went on and married her anyway, but I feel like he resented her very early on in the marriage.
Sure.
Because of it. But you went on to marry her anyway. You know what I'm saying? And
especially after he pursued her.
Right. So that does come up in the documentary that his family didn't like her. But right now, just a little background information to lead up to where I'm at. They have Bella, and then they have Celeste. That's where I'll leave it right there at the moment. We're going to go back to August 14th. So they're talking to Chris, and they're getting bulletins out, like, you know, information about what each girl looks like, markings and tattoos and all that shit for all three of them. And they're also canvassing the neighborhood. So, like, something that comes up later on that's kind of important now is one of the neighbors says, you know, like, they didn't notice anything or anything weird, but she did notice a truck that was parked, like, down the street, like, not in front of the Watts house, but kind of, like, all around the corner, like, on the street. That just, like, appeared there and hasn't moved. She said the dad has a great big truck that he uses for work or whatever, but this one was smaller and I'd never seen it before. It's kind of key later on. Like I said, they're canvassing the neighborhood, and that comes up. Now, like I said, one of my sources was an article called, the platform is called Honestly Yours. It is basically going over shit that they didn't talk about in this documentary. And one of those things that they talk about that they didn't talk about in the documentary is how these neighbors, like the guy who caught him on camera, also heard them fighting with each other often. And, like, loud enough to be outside. You know what I'm saying? So, that's one thing that they didn't put into the documentary that I want to touch on. That they were having problems in their marriage. So, they are interviewing the neighbors, and that's, like, those are the things that come up in that time. And in the same day, he gives this awkward fucking interview to all the news platforms here in Denver. So, like 7, 9, 4, 31. You know, he gives an interview to them.
Can you watch him online? Yes,
I watched it myself. I remember this shit. And I was like, he fucking did it. It was just, after I watched that interview, I couldn't believe my eyes. I honestly couldn't. I was like, this is the craziest thing right now. Like, he reads guilty.
I mean, right now, I don't even want to just, like, throw anything out there. Like, I hope that she's somewhere safe right now and with the kids. But, I mean, could she event? Could she just taken off? I don't know. But if somebody has her and they're not safe, like, I want them back now. Like, that's what's in my head. Like, if they're safe right now, they're going to come back. But if they're not safe right now, that's the not knowing part. Like,
this might be a tough question, but did you guys get into an argument before she left?
It wasn't like an argument. We had an emotional conversation, but I'll leave it at that. But I just want them back. I just want them to come back. And if they're not safe right now, that's what's tearing me apart. Because if they are safe, they're coming back. But if they're not, this has got to stop. Like, somebody has to come forward. Shannan, Bella, Celeste, if you're out there, just come back. Like, if somebody has her, just please bring her back. I need to see everybody. I need to see everybody again. This house is not complete without anybody here. Please bring her back.
It's an awkward fucking interview to all the news platforms. And he's talking about, whoever has them out there, I just want them back. Like, wherever they are, I just want them back. And I can't even fathom, like, what could be going on. And he just keeps saying, like, I want them back. And his face and everything is not sincere. It's not sincere for somebody who has 2 small kids and a wife who is pregnant. It's not sincere. And like I said, I viewed it for my fucking self, and I was like, that is weird. This is the same day that he gives his fucking interview to all the news groups, the major news groups, and then the police also bring him in for their own interview. During his interview, he gives an explanation on the hard conversation that he had with Shanan when she came home. He said they got into a heated argument or conversation the night before she became missing or whatever, but he didn't want to go into it. So the cops was like, well, we need to know what the fuck that conversation was about. Like, you ain't talking to the news groups right now. We need to know. To sum it up, he basically is talking about how he tells her that he wants a separation. And, that of course they were emotional. And so the cops, basically comes out and asks him if he's having an affair. And he's like, no, like, I never cheated on my wife. I never cheated on her. Like, this is not that. And he talks about how she doesn't get along with his parents. Before this happens, Shanan took her kids. So she's from New Jersey, but her parents was living in North Carolina at the time of this. And he is from North Carolina. So they moved here. They met in North Carolina and they moved here to Colorado. Frederick, Colorado is where they moved. She went back to North Carolina for 6 weeks to take her kids down there to see his parents and hers to visit. And at the time that they was down there, one of the daughters, I believe it was Celeste. It was Celeste's birthday. They celebrated her birthday down there. There was an incident while she was over at his parents' house. They already don't like her, right? Celeste, the little baby, she has a lot of allergies. And she's allergic to everything, like peanuts and all kinds of shit. Mm-hmm. And the grandma, which is Chris's mom, her name is Cindy Watts. She buys this ice cream, and she buys it for the kids. Shanan, freaks out because it's, everything in this ice cream is what Celeste is allergic to. So she freaks out, and she's like, you were trying to kill my kids, and you can't ever see them again, and, blah, blah, blah. Freaks out on them. I don't have an opinion about it either way because I don't know the situation. This is two different stories that you're receiving. So there's somebody else, the mother's side and Shanann's side of the story. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to get into that, whether the mom knew fair well, why would she do that to her grandkids? I think it was an honest mistake or whatever, but Shanan, blew it up, and she calls Chris, your mom was trying to harm our kids today. There's, text messages that she sent him. He's basically bringing that incident up in this interview with the cops about the conversation they had leading to their separation. He's bringing all that up. That was the hard conversation they was having. Not about him having an affair or anything, right? That's his explanation about why he wanted to separate, basically, in this interview, from what I got from it. They asked me if he had an affair. He says no. He never cheated on his wife. So, also on the same day, the police are contacting his supervisor. His name is Luke Apple. They're verifying his alibi about where he was that day, when she came up missing, after he left at 5:17 that morning. And it turns out that he was at this ranch called Survey Ranch. The company owns several wells on that property. It came to me that he was a mechanic. I'm not sure exactly what he was doing for this company or why he was there, per se. Mm-hmm. They say he was a mechanic, so I'm not sure. But it turns out that he was on that ranch that day, and the supervisor verifies it. Now, that ranch is significant, and it'll come up later. We're going to go on to August 15th. So this is day 2 after they're missing. He comes in to take a polygraph test. There's many things that I want to say about the cop who performed the polygraph, the woman. I don't like her. And I'll get to why I don't like her. I'll get to it. So he comes in for the polygraph test, and she's pumping him up. At first, she's very friendly with him. She's cool with him and shit. And she's if you know anything about this, or if you plan to come in here and you're lying, you're going to be deceptive. It'll be stupid of you to come in here and lie to me, basically, because I'm going to know if you're lying, is what she tells him. And he's like, oh, no, I'm not lying. I'm going to tell you the truth. And I want to know where they are. I want them home. And yeah. He takes the polygraph test and he fails it. And they show a part of there where she's like, I need you to control your breathing. Your breathing is all over the place. And he's like, oh, I know, I'm sorry. I'm just I'm very nervous. And she's like, I understand, but you need to reel it in and control your breathing. After they, compile it and see that he failed it, they come back in, they confront him. And she's flat out like, I know you're lying. You failed the polygraph. You were deceptive. And you specifically felt where you know where we asked you where her body is or where they are. Do you know where they are? And you're saying no. You know where they are. We're past the part of you lying and failing this polygraph and on to the part of you telling us what the fuck happened. It's basically what she tells it. Like, we're past the part because he's like, I didn't lie to you. I promise. I swear. Like, I didn't lie. And she's like, we're past that. We know you lied. You know, and so now we need to know where they're at. And then there's another male detective. He's Detective Graham. And he's like, look, you need to take a deep breath. Reel that shit in. We're past that. We know you're fucking lying. We want to know what happened. Where are they? I don't know where they are. I want them back. And she's like, you know that they're not coming back. Like, you may want them to, and that's what you think, but you know full well that they're not coming back, and you know what happened to them, so we're just waiting for you to tell us. She, in my opinion, gives him an out, right? Something that never even occurred to him until she says it. She's like, well, what happened? Did Shanan hurt them and then you hurt her? Like, chicks are crazy. That's exactly what she said. And the Detective Graham, the guy's like, hold up. Like, no. He, like, stops her. Chris is like, can I talk to my dad? They're like, okay. We'll let you talk to your dad if you tell him what happened. He agrees. They bring his dad in. And his dad is Ronnie Watts. So they bring the dad in. Dad sits with him. And he comes up with this bullshit fucking story about how he had come home and Shanan had smothered these kids. And he caught her in the act of doing it. And so he choked her and killed her. And then after he killed her, he took all three of them. He took all three of them from the house and went and buried the bodies because he didn't know what to do. He was so scared because he had killed Shanan that he didn't know what to do. It's completely feasible that if you walked in on your spouse killing your kids, that you would freak the fuck out and kill that spouse. Right? You're not going to go bury all three of them, are you? No, you're not going to go bury all three of them. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, it's feasible if you walked into that and you seen that happening and you flipped the fuck out and killed that person, killed your spouse. But immediately, I'm on the phone like, I can just kill my spouse because they killed my kids. You know, you still might go down for the murder of your spouse, but at least you didn't kill your fucking kids, and that's the reason why the spouse is dead. He literally sits up in here and tells his father that's what happened. So they come back in. The police come back in. This woman provided him that story. Even though it's bullshit. She provided him that story. That had never occurred to him. It had never occurred to him. He was going to deny to the fullest that he didn't know anything about what happened to them, all three of them. He was going to keep going with that. Mm-hmm. And he didn't know. He loved them. And I just want them back. That's all he keeps saying. So, you provided him this out. And he ran with it. They asked him where the bodies are at. Basically, he tells them the location. And it's where he worked at the Survey Ranch. He buried Shanan kind of on the outskirts of it, and he put the babies in the well. The Detective Graham is like, you know, basically giving him another chance to come clean about what really happened. And he was like, do you want the world to know and think that Shanan killed her kids? Are you comfortable with the world knowing that that's what happened? And he's like, unless you are really this monster. And he's like, I'm not a monster. I didn't kill my babies. I didn't kill them. I'm telling you the truth about what happened. Because the detective knows this is bullshit. There's no way that if you walked in on this woman killing these kids, that you buried all three of them. You buried her, you put them in a well? There's no way. There's no way you're removing the kids from the house if you didn't kill them. He's like, yeah, I didn't do it, you know. Word gets out that he is the one who is responsible for this. That he is actually the one who killed Shanan. And at the point, he's saying that Shanan killed these 2 kids. She had lupus. She never thought that she would be able to get pregnant. She has these 2 kids. They're like, in her own words, they're like a blessing to her because she didn't think she could ever have kids. And then she's pregnant with a 3rd one. Why would she kill them? And what reason does she have, what reason does she have to kill them, though? You know what I'm saying? Like, this woman gave you an out and you ran with it. But you don't have any, like, there's no reason to that theory that this woman killed her kids. Back to like my sidebar, my background information. In the 6 weeks that Shanan was in North Carolina, Chris did not go with her. He went out there after she had been gone for 5 weeks. They showed like her own video, like she videoed everything. She's like very much on like social media, Facebook, and recorded everything. She's like videotaping everything. So when he shows up to the airport, like he's not excited like a father who hasn't seen his kids in 5 weeks. Whatever's going on with you and her is different. But your kids, you know, you have like little babies and you haven't seen them in 5 weeks, you would be like, oh my God, hey, you know, like none of that. So he like walks over a little bit. Well, now I can hug you. And the kids are more excited than he is. And they're talking to him. But it's just like a lack of even wanting to be there with them.
Right.
You know, and they're like showing in the documentary, they're showing like text messages that she's sending to her friends. And she's like, he didn't even kiss me when he came. I haven't seen him in 5 weeks. He did not kiss me. He didn't touch me. He didn't hug me. He didn't do anything. When we kissed, I kissed him. And it was like a very brief thing, you know. She's also like saying like they're not having sex while he was there. You know, like they haven't had sex in 5 weeks and he wasn't even trying to. He much rather work out. So that brings me back to when I was saying that he was very heavy set when they got married. In one of the interviews he's having with the cops, he's saying that when he first met her, he was 245 pounds. Now I'm like 180 or something. So like a total of like 160, like 60, 65 pounds that he lost. And so he's slim and trim. He got a new body or whatever. So I'll go back to August 15th, the day that he did this polygraph. It comes out that he has a whole woman that he's been having an affair with. So like this whole 5 weeks while Shanan was in North Carolina, he's been dealing with this other woman. Her name is Nicole Kessinger. When she finds out that these kids and the wife is missing, she came to the police herself. So they didn't have to like seek her out or anything.
Right.
She came to the police herself and she's like laying down everything that was happening. So that's what I'm saying at the point. So they were co-workers and all this happened in August. She met him in June, like the beginning of June when she first started working there. And then their relationship became from platonic to romantic by the end of June. So he's having this affair with her, I want to say like the whole month of July, basically, like, because she was saying like Chris was going to be coming end of July to North Carolina.
Okay.
So in that 5 week time, he's with her this whole fucking time. He's with her the whole time. So when she comes to the cops, she's telling him like their shit started at the beginning of June. It got physical by the end of June. He told her that he had 2 kids and that he was married, but he was going through a separation. She's like with him all the time, like this whole 5 weeks. She thinks that Shanann's gone. She don't know that they are like still very much together. So like this whole time they're like showing text messages that Shanan is sending him, like basically accusing him of like not being around and not giving a fuck. You know, like you much rather go work out or do this and do that. Like you don't even want to touch me or nothing. And you know, I guess it's like shit's going on before she left. And then he gets there, like they haven't been around each other for 5 weeks and he ain't trying to give her no sex. He ain't trying to give her no play. And, you know, she's going for they kids because she went for it, not because he hasn't seen her in 5 fucking weeks. She knows something's wrong. Like, she's texting other friends, like, unless he is, like, getting it from somewhere else. And her friends are like, well, is that all that happened? And she's like, all that happened is the thing with his parents. You know, like, I got into it with his mom because she's trying to kill my kid, is her perspective. So that was, like, the only thing. She's like, that's the only thing that happened. But meanwhile, he's, like, fucking around with this Nicole this whole time. And I think, like, in my own opinion of things, I think he got with her. She's much younger and she's cute and shit. And I think that he just, like, wanted a whole nother life. Like, he did not want to be with Shanan. He didn't want to have these kids. He wanted to be in his new body and slim and trim with this very much active, younger woman. Instead of just leaving her, you know, it'll be fucked up anyway because she's pregnant. But instead of leaving her, you killed her and you killed your kids too? Like, it's fucking terrible. So anyway, like I said, she came to the cops to provide all this information. So they didn't even bring her up to him, like, in the polygraph. We already knew about her and we didn't even have to ask you. So that's why we didn't bring her up in this polygraph, because we already knew, and we knew that you would fucking lie about it. So are you comfortable with the world knowing that Shanan killed her kids and you caught her killing your kids and you killed her? He's like, I didn't know the monster. I didn't kill my babies. Like, okay, well, if you're comfortable with this, that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to say. Eventually, when all this other shit comes out, when they, like, lay it down on him, that we know that you were messing with this woman. Other things come out, like, before she came back. So it's like 3 days that weekend. She went on her business trip to Arizona. While he was out there, he took Nicole out to dinner. And Shanan gets, like, a notification from their bank account. This dumbass uses the same joint bank account and shit where she can see it, you know, with your dumbass. But honestly, in hindsight, I think about that. I think that he already knew what he was going to do. She gets a notification that he's, like, spending, like, $60. Also, Nicole provides this information to the police. Like, we went out to the bar. I think it was called Lazy Dog. You know, he's spending, like, the $65 tab. And Shanan gets this notification and, like, calls him, like, what the fuck, $65? Like, what are you doing? He's like, yeah, I got some salmon, I got this. So she looks up the menu and was like, what you got was only like $30. Like, where's this other $30, $40 that you spent at this bar? You know, like, no explanation, but she's, like, feeling away about it. And her friend, Nicole, is the one who's, like, providing that information, that she, like, was asking him and questioning him, and she's, like, looking at other charges that he made while she was gone, and they're all suspicious. The girlfriend, Nicole, says that he had, like, a babysitter that night. And so, like, I looked it up because they didn't talk about it in the documentary about him having a babysitter. So I found it, I looked it up, and it's, like, part of my sources that I found. This thing that comes on YouTube called Crime Talk. And the guy's name is Scott Resch, I believe it is. And he's, like, having, like, a whole interview with the babysitter. Because then the question becomes, when did you kill the kids? When did all of this occur? So we know at that point that the kids were still alive, because the babysitter confirms that Shanan even knew about her watching them. So Shanan knew he was going out that night. Obviously, she didn't know who he was going with. So like I said, the babysitter confirms that she was, like, texting her and knows about her watching these kids. Like I said, the question in my mind was, like, when did he do it? If she's coming home at 2 o'clock in the morning and the very next day they're all missing, like, that's the question. It is confirmed that he did actually hire a babysitter. After he has this conversation with Shanan about the money he spent, he takes old girl home and he leaves her house, and he, like, goes to a store. They, like, have him on video, surveillance video at a gas station, and he had to get money to give to the babysitter. So he goes home, he gives them the money and everything. It's confirmed that at least they were alive Saturday night. That's when the next day, when Shanan comes back to her in the morning, everything after that is kind of weird. Shit that didn't come into the documentary, like I said, came up on this article that I found on this Honestly Yours. Basically, the whole thing is about what they didn't tell you in this documentary. And the thing is by this woman named Shannan Ashley, and this is, like, a very recent article, actually, like October 4th of this year. One of the things that they were talking about that, like I said, was them not saying that they heard them fighting and shit weeks before the murder. But also, one thing that they don't talk about in this documentary is that eventually he does admit to killing these kids. That it wasn't Shannan, that he killed all of them. Without saying it, and everybody knows that you didn't want this life. You didn't want to be with her. You wanted to be with this much younger chick and your new bod. Because she was slim and trim and shit, you know what I'm saying? And she liked you when you were a fat boy. The turmoil of her and his parents not getting along, I think really like took a toll on him. As well as when this shit happened, there was like a lot of like internet activity, as in people saying that they think he's innocent. They don't think that he killed them. And also that she drove them to do it because she was a bitch. And like, I don't want to say any of that, because like we just said, we don't ever want to victim blame. But I think that she was a difficult person. I think he put up with her because he was like overweight and shit, and nobody else wanted to talk to him. This is my own personal opinion. I think that he took whatever she was dishing out because he knew that nobody else wanted to fuck with him. And then he like loses this weight, and now he's slim and trim, and now he wants to shed that. When he shed the pounds off his body, he wants to shed that whole life. Right. Like, instead of just divorcing her, you know what I'm saying, and making sure you don't get her pregnant again, you know what I'm saying? Like, you have to have been feeling this way for that whole time. What they also talk about is when she came home, they was like arguing about him cheating because she brought up the charges on his shit. I believe that it came out that he finally admitted that he was cheating on her with this Nicole Kessinger. And so of course she's upset or whatever. What she's saying is that he tried to kill these kids twice. What he confessed to, after he finally confesses to him being the one that actually killed them, he says that he killed Shanan first, then he loaded all of them up into the car. He drives them out to that ranch, to Survey Ranch, and he buries Shanan, and these kids are like asking him what happened. Like, where's my mom? Like, where's my mom? What are you doing? Like, what are you doing to mommy? What's wrong with her? And he doesn't tell them anything, of course. He buries her, and then he puts them in the well. Like, he suffocates them and puts them in the well. This woman is saying that he actually tried to kill them twice. After he's having this fight with Shanan, he goes into each and one of their rooms, and he smothers them with the pillow. And he thinks that he killed them, and he goes and gets back into the bed with Shanan. And they continue to argue where he went on and killed her. They both wake up from him like smothering her, so he didn't kill them. And that's why he like loads them into the car with Shanann's body and takes them to this well. Does the same thing to them again, and then puts them in the well to make sure that they don't wake up. And that's not what he admitted to. But that's what this woman is saying in this article. And I am like, I guess it's supposed to be that he explained in details these letters that he sent to Sherilyn Cattle. I guess she's going to write a book for him. And he like told her what really happened. So he admitted to like saying that he took them out there and put them in the thing. But he first went to go kill them. And then went and got in the bed with Shanan, like knowing full well that he was going to kill her.
So he smothered them, thought that he killed them, but they were just unconscious.
So I'm going to read this real quick. This is supposed to be in his own words, letters that he sent to this woman, Sherilyn. August 13th, morning of, I went to the girls' room first. Before Shanan and I had our argument, I went to Belle's room, then Cece's room, and I used a pillow from their bed to kill them. That's in parentheses. That's why the cause of death was smothering. After I left Cece's room, then I climbed back in bed with Shanan and our argument ensued. After Shanan had passed, after he killed her, after Shanan had passed, Bella and Cece woke back up. I'm not sure how they woke back up, but they did. Bella's eyes were bruised and both girls looked like they had been through trauma. That made the act that much worse, knowing I had went to their rooms first and knowing I still took their lives at the location of the burial is basically what this says. So that's what I'm saying. Like, he had to know what he was going to do. You know, like, you planned that. You planned that. You knew she was coming home. But that's why I said, that's what the question for me became, when he killed them. And then I came across this, because then I found the interview with the babysitter first.
Right.
Because I was like, oh my God, did he kill them and then go on a date? And, like, wait for her to come home? But he killed them first, and then, like, she was there. And, like, I just, like, fully assumed that he killed them and then, like, waited for her to come home. But he killed them while she was there. Or tried to. And then he killed her, and then they woke back up. And then he did it again. Like, that made it that much worse? Is that what made it worse? That they woke back up? They looked like they had been through trauma? Oh my God. Like I said, he eventually admits that he killed them and Shanan. He pleaded guilty on November 6, 2018 to multiple counts of first-degree murder as part of a plea deal when the death penalty was removed from the sentencing. He was sentenced to 5 life sentences without the possibility of parole, 3 to be served consecutively, and 2 to be served concurrently. Right now, so he was in a prison here in Colorado, but shortly after he got sentenced, they moved him to Dodge Correctional Institution. It's a maximum security prison in Waupun, Wisconsin. So one more thing that I wanna get to really quick is the girlfriend. According to this article, like shit that they didn't state in the documentary, is her coming around saying like she didn't know about the wife. Well, she didn't know that he was still married. She thought that he was separated and she knew about the kids. But after they like kind of dig into her a little bit more, they're like searching her Google searches, and she searched Shanan's, like have full knowledge about her. Because like I said, she was like on YouTube and she promoted this some kind of patch you put on where it's supposed to give you energy that she also used herself. I think that's what the coworker was part of. That's what she was working on. So she like, that's why she would have been like able to be Googled at the time before her death. So like it comes out that they was like probably messing around before, more sooner than what she's saying. And also that she pursued him. He didn't pursue her. And she knew full on that he was still married. And she knew about these kids and everything too. What they're basically saying in here is that she came forward really quickly so that she wouldn't be looking like she was like accessory to the wife coming up dead and everything else. So the cops still don't believe that she had anything to do with it. I don't have an opinion about that either way. Because, you know, like, no evidence has been put before me. It's just a theory that I want to talk about because it's in this article.
Sure.
That is basically, like, I think I have everything that I want to talk about. And that is, like, the devastating murder of Shanan, Bella, and Celeste. Why couldn't you just divorce her? The conversation of y'all separating comes up. Why couldn't you just follow through with that?
He wasn't really happy with his life with her.
Well, that's what I was saying. I think that when he was going for her in the beginning, he was a fat boy. And nobody was really fucking with him. And she wasn't either. But he continued to pursue her. I think there was a time when she was vulnerable. I'm not speaking about, you know, how she felt because I don't know. She says that when he came around, it was like the best thing that happened to her at that moment. But I kind of feel like she was like, just found out she had lupus. She was battling for her life, basically. And he came around at just the right time when that was happening to her. And like I said, I don't know their relationship. I don't know her. I don't know him. So I won't speak on that. But I just feel like looking from the outside, I feel like there was something that they both needed at that moment. And that was why they were together. You know? Then it comes out later on down the road that maybe that you didn't really want to be with her. Your family don't like her. You know what I'm saying? She says that she's like the dominant one in their relationship. And they show like this clip of them planning where he's like the Santa Claus for Christmas. And he's like standing at the front door. And she's like, Santa Claus, where's your phone? And he's like, in the garage. And she was like, I wanted it for pictures. So she has her phone. She's videotaping on her phone. It's like Facebook Live or whatever on her phone. And instead of her like taking pictures on her phone, she wants his phone. And she's like, Daddy's not following instructions. She's like, it's like being one parent by myself. And she's like going out and getting the phone and shit. And that's why I said there's like a large community of people, surprisingly women, who are like, she drove him to do it. She drove him to kill her. You know, like whole conversations. This two, like they have in the documentary. These two women are talking, and she's like, "Why are you victim blaming?" And she's like, "You don't know what goes on between two people. I think she drove him to do it." You know, and it's just like, that's fucking terrible. That's terrible. Even if she did, he didn't have to kill. He could have left her.
There's definitely like a weird vibe of like emotional abuse in the relationship.
Yeah. I just kind of got the tip of the iceberg of like, because like I didn't read any of those forums about people saying anything about her, because I don't want to read any of that. Like, that's fucking terrible. Because at the end of the day, the babies, you know, the babies. And she was pregnant with another baby. They knew the sex of the baby was a boy. Like, so she's pretty far along if they know the sex, you know? So I'm just like, they are the true victims. Again, I can't wrap my mind around why he tried to kill them first. I can't wrap my mind around why he killed them at all. But I think he got a taste of freedom for 5 weeks. You know what I'm saying? Where he was able to do whatever he wanted with this woman and bring her up in the house and have sex with her and shit and take pictures. Like, they were like full on dates and everything. So I just feel like he got a taste of what it would be like to not be with his family. And then he went back out there that last week they was in North Carolina, and he didn't want to do it anymore. And he's like, she's fucking pregnant on top of all that. There's another baby coming. You know? But like I said, instead of leaving her, like, leave her. Don't kill her. Don't kill your own kids. Leave her. It's heartbreaking. Like, I don't have kids, and, you know, I don't plan to have them. But I'm just like, that's heartbreaking. That's heartbreaking, the kids.
I kind of find a little bit of comfort in doing what we do here on the podcast, because their stories deserve to be told.
Right.
This week we actually do have a piece of cake, which we just discussed a second ago, about Governor Polis pardoning thousands of past marijuana convictions. We both agree that this is a good thing for everybody that's caught up in the gray area, and a lot of the people who are kind of serving on some bullshit weed charges.
Yeah. I mean, like, honestly, I think that this should have been done a long time ago.
Right.
Because how long has weed been legal now?
Oh, yeah. Legalization, January 2014.
Okay. So it's about time is what I'll say about that.
Yeah.
That's a good piece of cake.
All right. Well, there you have it, people.
I do want to say one thing real quick.
Oh, yeah. What's up?
So recently, it's like a bar that I go to and started frequently over this, like, COVID times or whatever. Zephyr. This bar has been around for over 70 years. It's off of Colfax and Peoria.
Okay.
And I just got word today, like everybody else, like in the community of this bar, like regulars who go there, that the owner sold it is going to be like turned into an apartment complex. They had this like huge big Halloween party last night, and they still like closed it down early or whatever. And then the owner sends out this letter to the people who work there this morning, basically trying to stop them before they go to work.
Yeah.
Saying that last night was the last night. I was only going there very shortly, very, very briefly, but the bartender there, Miss T, like, she gives you a strong fucking pour, and she's going to be missed as a bartender. So, like, wherever she's going, I know that's where everybody else is going, but I just want to say a brief, like, rest in peace, Zephyr. Like, it just, you know, they should have went out with a bang and had a real big party last night. A lot of their regulars was there. I was only there for a little bit, but, you know, like, my friend is a regular, and they could have had, like, a real big party, and I, you know, I just want to pay a small homage, whatever I can, on our small podcast to the Zephyr, because it's like...
Nice.
R.I.P. Zephyr.
It's a tricky, you know, it's a tricky business.
Yeah, I mean, like, I understood his reasons, you know, like, COVID hit him hard, and he was saying that whole block basically has been bought out by these developers who are going to put apartment buildings there. Mm-hmm. You know, like, that whole area around there, which used to be Fitzsimmons, you know, the University of Colorado Hospital is there now.
Yeah.
And they're, like, building all these, like, hotels and all these different things. Like, our city is changing, and we can talk about the gentrification on another episode. For a place that's been around for over 70 years, it should have had a better ending than it did. And I just want to have a small little homage on, like I said, on our small podcast to the Zephyr. So rest in peace, Zephyr.
Well put. Well put.
And so anybody who's been listening to, if you've been rocking with us for these 3 episodes, we are very proud of them. Thank you very much. We appreciate everything. We appreciate if you subscribe to our shit and fucking listen to it. Thank you very much.
And I think I have a couple closing notes myself. The story today, I actually found some of my sources through a web forum called the Demon's Den. And like I do like a lot of like web forums and stuff like that.
Not bad.
Yeah.
What's ironic is we both selected some stories, that had like children involved, and it's heavy. It's very heavy, but like I said, I told you, like, it's heavy, but it needs to be told. Like,
I agree.
It's heavy.
I agree.
And that story that yours needs to be told too, like.
Sure. Well,
it's rough.
Cheers. This goes out to the kids.
To the kids, to the victims of our stories. Ooh.
If you like the podcast, find us on, I guess you've already found us.
Find us again and tell your friends.
Yeah, tell your friends.
And subscribe and review our shit.
Playing us out, The Spider and the Fly proudly present Final Boss.
Final Boss.
Bye.